Walters Sports Bar is available for private events. Visit waltersdc.com/private events for more information.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Here's Matt Olson playing in his 892nd consecutive game, and skies one to deep right on a line, and it is gone. Goodbye. Into those seats below the Chop House restaurant, straight away right field. Matt Olson with his 29th home run of the year, RBI number 67. And only the 5th home run allowed to a left-handed hitter by Griffin. And it's the Braves 1 and the Nationals nothing as he turns around a cutter to the inner half of the plate just above the knees.
Nationals move the infield in halfway with Michael Harris the batter. Griffin fires, and Harris launches one deep right field. Way back it goes, and it is gone into the Chop House. Harris flips his bat away. It's a 3-run homer and a 5-1 Atlanta lead. 3 pitches in the inning, a double, a single, and a Harris homer, his 20th of the year. They are 6 for 6 on the first pitches of at-bats.
The set of the pitch. Breaking ball hit to the ground right side. Back into by Olson. He'll flip to Hernandez, covering in time to get Abrams. And the game is over. The Braves have won the first 2 games of this 4-game series.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He is at Truist Park in Atlanta. So we now are 2 days away from the trade deadline in MLB's 2026 regular season. And the Nats now are a game under 500, off 4 losses in 5 games, a 6-2 loss at the Atlanta Braves on Friday night in Game 2 of a 4-game series. Nats now 55-56, run differential of plus 23, now 2.5 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies for the National League's 3rd of 3 wild card spots. The Braves now are a National League East best 65-45 with an NL East best run differential of plus 101. Good to have you with us. We have a website that we invite you to check out, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can buy a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. And we always enjoy receiving pictures of people wearing their Nats Chat Podcast t-shirts at Nats games. A thank you to Carol Shovers, a mother of the creator, owner, and executive producer of this podcast, Tim Shovers, for wearing her Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt at Thursday night's game for the Nats at the Braves. Hopefully she was not pestered by any Braves fans. So if Nats starting pitcher and trade candidate Foster Griffin on Friday night did make his final appearance for the Nats, he did not go out on a high note. He officially allowed 6 runs in 5 1/3 innings. On the last installment of the podcast, brought up the possibility, however remote, of the Nats scratching Griffin from this game in order to avoid injury. Did you happen to see what the New York Mets and Detroit Tigers did on Friday? Each team scratched its scheduled starting pitcher, who is a trade candidate. The Mets, Freddie Peralta, the Tigers, Casey Mize. Interesting to see the Mets and Tigers do that. But the Mets and Tigers are not in playoff contention in the way that the Nats are. Although the Tigers do have a really good run differential. But, injury was not the problem for Foster Griffin on Friday night. The Braves lineup was, and Griffin just did not have it. And also in this game, another Nats trade candidate, Luis Garcia Jr., he was the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter, went 0 for 3, left the game. We wondered why. Was he in the midst of being traded? But then the news came out that he was dealing with right knee soreness. All kinds of thoughts are running through people's minds right now. The trade deadline cannot come soon enough. Meantime, the Nats have dropped the first 2 games of this big series at the Braves. The Nats over these 2 games are 0 for 17 with runners in scoring position. It's amazing, Mark. The Nats over the first 2 games of this series have totaled 5 home runs. That's pretty good. But the run total is just 6. And of course, a big part of that, as mentioned, 0 for 17 with runners in scoring position.
And look, we can try to say that that's fluky, that that's not emblematic of anything, and that a lineup as good as this one over the long haul will produce in those spots. But you can't tell me that what we've seen, and it's not just these 2 games, it's been magnified these 2 games. but it's now 5 of their last 6 losses. Coming into this one, it was 4 of their last 5 losses had been by 1 run, and they were collectively 4 for 39 with runners in scoring position in those games. And then you go 0 for in both the first 2 games of this series, and you can't tell me that somewhere in the back of these guys' minds, when they step up to the plate in a big spot, that it's not somewhat on their mind, that the moments are becoming big. It's acceptable. I get it. These are mostly inexperienced players who have never been in this kind of position before in a pennant race. They know the trade rumors are swirling. They know how important this week is towards determining the future direction of the organization. They're human. And so I don't think it's shocking that they would struggle to that extent. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to everybody, and it feels like it just builds on itself over the course of a game, probably more so Thursday because that was a tight, close game all along, whereas this one got a little more lopsided as it went. But I think you have to acknowledge that these guys are probably feeling the weight of what this week means for them. And as I said, most of them have never been in this position before, and frankly, they're kind of playing like it.
Yeah, 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position Thursday night, 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position on Friday night. I think most people who follow baseball closely understand that how you do with runners in scoring position is a volatile stat. It's a kind of thing that fluctuates sometimes wildly from season to season. But of course, when you're analyzing, well, why did a team lose a game? Well, not getting any hits with runners in scoring position is a reason. Like, it's okay to acknowledge something like that while also saying that it's not necessarily indicative of anything moving forward. Now, with Luis Garcia Jr., so he leaves the game due to right knee soreness. It's amazing the circumstance in which he left the game, right? He gets pinch hit for by Andres Chaparro with a right-handed pitcher on the mound. And you're like, wow, that is not what we're used to seeing. But it looks like Garcia was, in fact, dealing with right knee soreness, right?
Yes, he was totally legit. And if you go back and watch his first at-bat in the first inning, he makes contact. He tries to get out of the box, and he kind of stumbled a little bit and tweaked it there. So he did feel something. He said it was tightness, soreness. Not so bad that he couldn't continue, and he played 6 more innings after that, but it did continue to tighten up on him as the game went on. He mentioned it. I think the trainers were checking on him. And by the time you got to the 7th inning, it was determined that it was not worth trying to push any further. Now, the great unknown there is, did the score of the game impact that? It's not a blowout. It's 6-1. So you wouldn't think that that was it, but maybe if it's a tight game, he tries to play through it, but once it's 6-1, you say, this isn't really worth it. Now, he did say going back in, he was looked at, got some treatment, and he said he felt great afterwards. So the indication is that he's good to go on Saturday. We'll see whether the Nats, for more than one reason, might decide not to push that and just give him a day off, or pick your reason for that. But for about 5 to 10 minutes there in the 7th inning, the world was wondering what exactly just happened. And I think what added to that is that 2 batters earlier, they pinch hit for Jacob Young with Jorbit Bibas. And you thought, well, wait a minute, we've heard Young's name come up a little bit because something had happened there. But then you could see Young was in the dugout on the railing, and that was strictly a lefty for a righty situation, whether you agree with that one or not. Then 2 batters later, Chaparro is pinch hitting for Garcia. That's now righty on righty. We know they pinch hit for Garcia all the time, but not against a righty. And when you looked in the dugout, he was nowhere to be found. So the mind is obviously going to go places. I tweeted what happened and said it seemed odd. I didn't suggest anything had gone on, but that caught some steam. A lot of people saw that, spread it around. And then as soon as I found out, like I said, it was about maybe 5-7 minutes later, the Nationals announced that it was right knee soreness. And I spread the word, and hopefully everybody could stand down after that. But this is the time we're living in right now, in the social media age and in these final days up to the trade deadline, where anything out of the ordinary happens, your mind naturally is going to go there.
Well, the thing to be looking for is the hug. If a guy gets taken out of a game and you look in the dugout and he's being hugged by his teammates, that's a sign that he's going bye-bye, that he has just been traded. So that's the thing to be looking for these next few days. Do you see any hug sessions in the Nats dugout at any point with any players? So with Foster Griffin in this 6-2 loss at the Braves on Friday night. Griffin in this game faced the Braves for the third time in this regular season, and things did not go well. He officially allowed 6 runs in 5 1/3 innings. First time that Griffin allowed more than 3 runs in an outing in 12 outings. May 19th was the last time that Griffin had allowed more than 3 runs in an outing. He gave up 9 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 6 singles. He issued 2 walks, recorded 3 strikeouts, did throw a good number of strikes, 78 pitches, 50 strikes, just 28 balls. But the run prevention was not there, and Griffin gave up some hard hits. In the bottom of the first, allowed a run, gave up a 2-out first pitch solo homer by Matt Olson to right field for a 1-0 Braves lead. Griffin in the bottom of the second allowed a run on 3 singles, including a 1-out RBI single by Jim Jarvis to center field for a 2-0 Braves lead. Griffin in a Braves 4-run 6 was charged with all 4 runs in giving up a home run, a double, and 2 singles, and the homer was a first pitch 3-run homer by Michael Harris II to right field for a 5-1 Braves lead, and that homer went a projected 421 feet per Statcast. So we know that in sports, results often drive narratives. And so you look at this Foster Griffin outing and you say, okay, him uncharacteristically struggling like this, was it because he was facing the Braves for a third time? Was it because all of the trade talk got to Griffin? Was it maybe just because the Braves are really good and Griffin was due for a bad outing? Like, hard to parse through all that and figure out what exactly was the cause. But here's what I do know. This is not the Foster Griffin who we are used to seeing, and something that really stood out from this game. Nats pitching coach Simon Matthews came out for a mound visit, I believe in the 2nd inning. And I don't know if you can look up how many times a pitcher has been visited on a mound in a season. But boy, there have not been many mound visits for Foster Griffin, and there sure as heck have not been many 2nd inning mound visits for Foster Griffin, and yet we got one of those in this game.
You're 100% right, and that shows that he really was off from the start. You could tell this wasn't the same guy that we've seen here for really more than 2 months, had not had anything close to resembling this outing. Those 3 scenarios you presented, I would imagine that there could be a combination of all of that to explain this. Yes, the Braves are good. Yes, they faced him for the 3rd time, and they're the first team to face him for a 3rd time this year. And he alluded to the idea that he wasn't thrilled with his pitch selection in some of those situations, but then he followed that up by saying, you can worry about that, but ultimately you have to be able to execute your pitches. And so what I think he's kind of alluding to there is the Braves have seen him now, especially by the time you get to the 6th inning of this game, where their lineup is now facing him for the 3rd time in this game, for the 3rd time this season. They know the book on him. They might anticipate what it is he's trying to do. And so he's now got to play that mind game of, okay, do they know what's coming? And do I need to do something different than I've done the last 2 games and the last 2 times up? Do I stick with what I know works? And you get caught up in that so much that you kind of forget about the most important part, which is you got to execute the pitch. You got to locate it in the right spot. And if you look at a lot of those hard hits that he gave up in this game, they were right over the heart of the plate. This is a strike thrower, but he's very good at hitting the corners and commanding all 7 of his pitches. And I think that's what got him more than anything in this game. And you look at those 3 batters that started the 6th, first pitch double, first pitch single, first pitch homer. That's a team that kind of knew what to expect, and they had seen enough of him at that point, and they said he likes to throw first pitch strikes. We're going right after him, and he paid the price for it.
One bad outing should not impact the trade market for Foster Griffin, should it?
It shouldn't. And I mean, if you're a team that's scouting him, I would believe you've been watching a lot more than this one appearance. And, you know, you could even argue that, let's say there are some American League teams in the mix. This might almost underscore to you the idea of, hey, most of the American League hasn't seen him at all this year or in the past. So maybe the Braves got to him because this was the 3rd time. You know, I suppose if the Braves or Phillies or Marlins were interested, maybe you back off, worried that the division has seen him enough now. But if you're in the American League, he's not going to be facing the same teams again. So I wouldn't think that this performance really changes a whole lot. Yeah, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. But if somebody's making their decision based strictly off that, they haven't been doing their homework. There's a lot of evidence over the entirety of the season to suggest that he's a much better pitcher than he looked in this game.
So if, in fact, this was it for Foster Griffin, you're looking at 22 games, all of which have been starts, ERA 3.06, whip 1.07, 116 strikeouts versus 30 walks, 129 and a third innings. He has been easily the Nats' best pitcher this season. You know, it's funny. I remember having a conversation with you during one of our spring training episodes, and we talked about, this guy Foster Griffin, last 3 years in Japan. And isn't it kind of odd how the Nats are just handing him a spot in the rotation? Like, geez, they really are counting on him to be legit and to be someone who just should be, I don't want to say gifted a spot in the rotation, but there really wasn't much talk in the way of like he has to compete for a spot. Like, 1-year contract, reportedly $5.5 million. And here you go, Foster. Here's a spot in the rotation off you having not pitched in MLB in years. Boy, did this work out, regardless of what happens these next few days. I mean, this was a home run free agent signing, the Nats signing Foster Griffin.
Yeah, and I think we shouldn't overlook this because this is not somebody that they would have been seeing in the big leagues last few years. Like this new front office that came together, it's not like they've got a whole, scouting report on him like most free agent pitchers who had been in the major leagues the last couple of years. This is a tremendous job by them of having some connections in Japan, having seen him pitch there, and trusting that what they saw and what they heard about him was legitimate. And there was genuine optimism when they brought him in. I don't think they felt like they were going out on a huge limb giving him that contract. I think they tended to believe that the 3 years he spent there was legitimate, that he knew how to pitch, and that he could be effective for them. Now, did anybody truly expect this? Probably not. I'm not even sure Foster Griffin himself ever really imagined it would go as well as this. But kudos to the front office for identifying him, for finding a very affordable pitcher that turned out to be way better than anybody they could have spent comparable money on in free agency. And whether he is a part of the long-term plan here or whether this was it for him, that is a win for the organization. And what it does is it buys him a little bit of goodwill moving forward when it comes to future evaluations. I think of pitchers with unproven track records. I'm not saying it's always going to work out like this, but I think they deserve a little bit of benefit here to say these guys were able to identify somebody who was going to come to them affordably, and look at what they got out of him. There's reason to think they could maybe do something along those lines again.
And it's so funny because an issue for the Nats has been their lack of spending, not just on domestic free agents, but international free agents, especially guys from Asia. And here you had the Nats spending on a pitcher from Asia, and it turns out it was an American in Foster Griffin, who ended up coming over off spending the last 3 seasons in Japan and being terrific.
The 3-1. Swing a long drive right field for Abrams. Acuna can only watch. This one back toward the chop house, and it's gone. C.J. Abrams, home run number 28. And the Nationals are on the board. It's 2-1 Atlanta. Abrams got a high cutter and destroyed it.
Few other items from this Nats 6-2 loss at the Braves on Friday night. So the offense as a whole, like we discussed, struggling with the runners in scoring position, 0 for 8. The Nats scored 2 runs, did have 9 hits and 4 walks. The 9 hits were 2 homers, a double, and 6 singles. C.J. Abrams homered. He is the Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter, 1 for 2 with a solo homer. He and the Nats 1-run fourth had a leadoff homer to right field to cut the Nats deficit to 2-1. But also for Abrams in this game, 3 walks. Did commit a fielding error as well, but I actually wanted to focus on the walks for a moment. So, by now Abrams has set a career high for homers, 28 homers. He now has set a career high for walks. He has 42 walks. C.J. Abrams, the lack of the walk certainly had been an issue for him over his MLB career. He is at 42 walks, a career high, with still plenty of games to go. His on-base percentage is at .367 to go with a .563 slugging percentage. The homers have been great. The doubles have been great. But man, that increase in the walk rate, just tremendous from Abrams.
It is, and I think it's a sign of a bigger thing here, which is that Abrams has done such a good job this year of swinging at the right pitches. And when he does, he causes damage. The home runs, the doubles, and everything else. And the walks, I think, go hand in hand with that. We know that when he struggled in the past, it was very often a matter of him chasing out of the zone, especially breaking balls down and away from lefties, things like that. He has done such a better job of being more patient. And he's talked about having that mindset of just look for a pitch in the spot where you know you can hit it.
Everybody wants to score the runs, but every now and then the job doesn't get done. But just continue to stay with the approach and good things will happen.
See ball, hit ball, and he's done that really well. And when he doesn't see it where he wants, he's willing to let it go. And I think that more than anything is what has allowed him to have this kind of success this year. I think they go hand in hand, the increase in walks to go along with all the extra increase in production.
Also homering for the Nats in this game, Andres Chaparro. He came off the bench to pinch hit and play first base. He was the guy who pinch hit for Luis Garcia Jr. Chaparro 1 for 2 with a solo homer. He and the Nats 1-run ninth, had a 2-out solo homer to left field to cut the Nats deficit to 6-2. So on this, the final day of July, Andres Chaparro homers again. He finishes July with 6 home runs and a slugging percentage of .912, not an OPS of .912, a slugging percentage of .912. We talk about selling high. Should the Nats maybe trade Andres Chaparro, given the month of July that this guy just had?
If there's a good offer for him, by all means, go for it. I don't know how realistic that would be, but sure, it is pretty amazing for all the angst that there was a few weeks ago about every time Andres Chaparro would either start in place of Luis Garcia or pinch hit for him. Now we're at a point where everybody's upset if he's not in the lineup, no matter who they're facing. This is a small thing, and it hasn't necessarily resulted in victories for them. But I feel like over the last week or so, you know what we've seen? Nats right-handed hitters having success against right-handed pitchers. That's Chaparro. It's Brady House, who's hit the ball pretty well against righties. Dylan Cruz, I know the last couple games haven't been as good, but he was starting to do that, I think, on the homestand. That's a very important development, and as we move forward, I think it'll be interesting to see if Blake Butera lets some of these right-handed hitters get more at-bats against right-handed pitchers because they are making better contact, and it's maybe not just about the lefty-righty matchups, but the actual evidence of good at-bats that some of these righty hitters are putting together.
Yeah, that has been encouraging. Brady House, in this small sample size back at the major league level, I think has looked pretty good. I've been encouraged by what we have seen from him. And with Luis Garcia Jr. and to a lesser extent, Andres Chaparro, here now are the total offensive stats for Nats first baseman this regular season. So just looking at offensive production from the first base position for the Nats, 111 games, 31 home runs, batting average .282, on base percentage .336, slugging percentage .575. So, you know, we talk about like first base power position. Did the Nats have enough, offensive oomph at first base? That's what the overall team first base production has been. 31 home runs and OPS of .911. Just outstanding.
And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the last several years, it hasn't been anywhere close to that. Their production at first base. Think about the guys they brought in on these one-year deals or waiver pickups. I mean, none of them. Joey Gallo, Joey Meneses, Nathaniel Lowe, Dominic Smith, like none of these guys delivered for them what you would be hoping for out of a first baseman. Turns out the answer all along was the guy who was playing second base for several years for you and the right-handed AAA, quadruple A bat that you got for Dylan Floro at the trade deadline a couple years ago from the Diamondbacks. The two of them combined have turned out to be very productive. Now the question is, will they remain the first base duo for the rest of the season for this team? Or are we due to see somebody like Abimelec Ortiz or even Yo-Yo Morales before the season is up?
And then also for the Nats in this 6-2 loss at the Braves on Friday night. So the Nats used just one reliever. He was Trevor Williams, and he again looked good. He officially tossed 2 2/3 scoreless innings, had 4 strikeouts versus 1 walk. Now, he and the Braves 4-run-6 did give up an RBI single, but Williams over 63 pitches threw 42 strikes versus just 21 balls. Again, small sample size. We must use that phrase when appropriate, but so far, so good for Trevor Williams in this new role for him as a reliever for the Nats.
Yeah, not the highest of leverage situations, but come on. I mean, he hasn't pitched in over a year. He's made 2 appearances now. I think the fastball was up over 90 in this game. That's nice to see. I don't know that we necessarily thought that would be the case. And just the fact that he could come back and pitch 2 days later after his first game. For a guy who's been a starter, I know in the past he was a reliever, but it's not like on his rehab he was being used like this. That's actually a really encouraging sign. Now, I don't know what it means for the rest of the year and if he's going to contribute in any meaningful way for them. But if nothing else, he has proven that it was the right move by them to stick with him through the long rehab and to put him on the active roster for now. And maybe he can be, eat up some valuable innings for them as a right-handed longman. And maybe he can be even more than that. If you keep pitching well, you're going to get more opportunities to pitch in bigger spots. So maybe there is hope yet for Trevor Williams to make a positive impact on this team before his contract is up at the end of the year.
Game 3 for the Nats at the Braves Saturday night at 7:15. Miles Mikolas is scheduled to be the Nats starting pitcher, although as we know, the possibility of the Nats using an opener is very much in play. The Braves starting pitcher is scheduled to be former Nats prospect Reynaldo Lopez. So we're looking at a 3-game losing streak for the Nats. The Nats during this 3-game losing streak have been outscored 16-8. We talked about how you want at least a split of this 4-game series at the Braves. The Nats have some work to do in order to come out of Atlanta with 2 wins in the series.
Yeah, so you're going to need to win a Mikolas start or bulk game or whatever you want to call that. And then if you do that, you've got Cade Cavalli on Sunday, which you should feel better about. But look, let's lay the cards out there right now. They are under 500 with 2 days to go until the trade deadline. They have to win both games to get to August 3rd with a winning record. And if they don't, they're either going to be 1 game under, or God forbid, they're going to be 3 games under. I know that's shouldn't make that much difference. We'll have played over 113 games by that point. You would think that Paul Taboni has already made his decision about the future. But just from an optics standpoint, to me, there's a huge difference between being 1 game over at the trade deadline versus 1 game under versus 3 games under. And maybe he's already made up his mind. He knows what he's going to do. But if there's any last shot at anything changing before Monday, these 2 games are it. They have to win them both, I think, to convince him that, yes, we're, buying, or that they are still in this thing. If they split their game under, maybe you can argue there's still time and maybe you can pick up a couple of relievers. If you're 3 games under, it's a hard thing to convince people that they should be in a position to try to add as opposed to subtract.
What's funny is lately the bullpen actually has not been that much of a problem. Now, that doesn't mean that the bullpen still isn't a problem. Of course it is, but actually lately the bullpen hasn't been that bad. Here's the other thing too, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago, but the trade deadline is so late this season that the Nats will arrive at the trade deadline with just 49 games left in the regular season. The Nats now 55-56, so 111 games. The Nats will have played 113 games by the time we get to Monday. That's it. If you get a rental, you're talking about a mere 49 games having the guy as compared to in years past where you have someone for 50-plus games, maybe even 60-plus games.
It's a good point, and it goes the other way, too. And I'll be curious, but we keep asking, what is truly going to be offered for Foster Griffin? Well, you're talking about him being able to make maybe 10 starts for a new team, maybe only 9, depending on how the schedule goes. Does that impact how much you're being offered for him? I know, everybody wants pitching this time of year, and maybe teams get desperate, but you're not talking about getting him for a whole lot of work that you're going to get for a new team. It will be interesting. Does that change at all what the offers are? Not that it was going to happen a week or 2 ago, but maybe if somebody was more aggressive, you could offer a little bit more knowing you're going to get 12 starts out of him instead of 9 or 10. So I don't know, but you're right that it is so late this year that it's really, you typically think of it as 1/3 of the season. No, it's about 30% of the season that you're getting anybody for.
You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. Hit us up on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
1-1 the count. Chaparro swings and hits one in the air to deep left field. Back goes Dubon. He's at the fence, and this ball is gone. Goodbye. Into the Nationals bullpen, a home run for Andres Chaparro. continues to swing the bat really well since play resumed after the All-Star break for Chaparro. His 6th home run of the year and his 20th run batted in. The Nationals 2 runs tonight on solo homers by C.J. Abrams and Andres Chaparro. It's now the Braves 6 and the Nationals 2.